Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video, and this is another NBA reaction, and the video is 5 things we've learned from the 2020 NBA off-season, and this is by Legend of Winning. And with the league returning so soon now, it's less than a week now, isn't it? And with like certain things that have been going on, certain trades, certain contract extensions. It was yesterday, wasn't it, where Giannis signed his extension with the Bucks, a 5-year, £250 million dollar deal, which is ridiculous. I mean, I thought he was going to move either. I think if he moved next year, he would have been able to go for free. I might be wrong with that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. But on a free, or like as a free agent kind of thing, which would have been crazy. But I mean, fair play to him. He's shown his loyalty. I just sort of had dreams of him being with like Luka Doncic and Porzingis with the Mavs, but he chose to stay, and I respect it. I can't lie, because he's obviously got a love for where he's at. But yeah, just things like that have been happening. Obviously, Harden is still rumoured to be moving. This video was actually also made about 4 days ago, so it may be a little bit off of a few things, or a few things may have changed since this video was made. But yeah, I'm interested in seeing this, and I'm definitely wanting to get back into the basketball content with the league returning so soon. But yeah, hopefully you guys are going to enjoy this reaction. There's a lot of videos I'm trying to get back with doing, but there's so many sort of basketball reactions I have to do. It's going to take some time, but hopefully you guys are going to enjoy. Let's check this out and let's see what things we've learned from the 2020 NBA offseason.
So, as I'm recording this, the NBA season starts in the next 10 days, and I felt like this is the perfect time to really wrap up everything that we...
I swear I've seen Harden being linked with... he's been linked with a lot of teams, but I swear like the 76ers has popped up lately. If he went to the 76ers, would that mean Simmons and Embiid would also be there, or would one of them have to move because of his contract? Like, it would be so big. Because if he went there and Ben Simmons and Embiid were there, bro, they would build some crazy team
in the off season. And as I wrap up, the more important things that we've learned, this also allows us to set expectations for some of these teams, the conferences, and players in this upcoming season. Now, if you enjoyed this type of content, make sure you leave a comment in the comment section below so we can continue this conversation. Also, hit the thumbs up, but most importantly, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be updated when I drop these videos. So first, let's talk about the Houston Rockets, and I honestly believe this has been the biggest story all throughout the shortened offseason. After having one of the more successful runs in the past decade, the Houston Rockets are finally moving in a different direction, and it isn't just with their personnel. In the beginning of the offseason, General Manager Daryl Morey, after nearly 15 years with the organization, decided to part ways. Around that same time, head coach Mike D'Antoni also departed from the franchise, and following those decisions, both James Harden and Russell Westbrook decided to request a trade, which could be problematic for the Houston Rockets because as they reside in the Western Conference, that means that it's much more difficult to make the playoffs, and this is an organization that just the year prior gave up some draft assets to receive Russell Westbrook. Eventually, the front office in Houston finally found a situation for Westbrook and traded him to the Washington Wizards, and in return received John Wall in a draft pick, as well as making some other decisions throughout the offseason that could potentially bring some optimism to a franchise that is looking to rebuild in the near future. But we're only at the surface of the major problem here, because after a very successful run, James Harden has not only found himself demanding a trade, but also highly upset with the front office, despite the fact that throughout his tenure in Houston, he has okayed and approved several transactions and roster changes to this organization. And here we are now, and the Rockets still have not traded him. Now, that is not to say that there aren't any suitors out there for James Harden. There are several teams that are willing to give up anything to bring on a player of Harden's caliber. The only problem is that the Houston Rockets want to make sure that they get something of value in return. Now, allegedly, the Houston Rockets are targeting the Philadelphia 76ers in hopes that in return they will receive either Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons.
Oh, so they'd get one of them. Okay, so that is a bit of a different case then. That's interesting because obviously they're both on huge contracts themselves. So I was thinking the salary cap wouldn't allow that.
Simmons, so the transition from being a title contending team to a rebuilding one will be as smooth as possible. But regardless of what Houston will receive for Harden, because we're talking about a team that is out west and more than likely at best We're talking about an organization that will be revamping, not potentially doing a complete rebuild. More than likely, the Rockets will be a worse team than they have been in the prior years, which is a shame because we are talking about an organization that has been really consistent when it comes to just making the playoffs and being a title contender over the past 3 to 4 years. Speaking of the Sixers, I do believe that's a great transition to talk about what exactly has happened in Philly, because looking at the decisions that have been made with that front office over the past couple of months, it is very clear that this year could potentially be the last season that we see of the quote-unquote process. After deliberately losing and tanking for 4 straight years, as well as a few underwhelming seasons since we have seen both Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid participate with one another on the court, it is clear that the Sixers need some type of direction, and it is uncertain to what exactly is holding them back from that. Because of this, Philly has made some drastic changes to their organization, and it isn't just with the personnel. They brought in Daryl Morey from Houston to fill in an executive role position in their front office. They also decided to part ways with Brett Brown as a head coach and bring in Doc Rivers, and they also decided to revamp their roster. So even though you can make an argument that talent-wise they may have gotten worse by departing from both Al Horford and Josh Richardson, bringing in both Danny Green and Seth Curry into the starting lineup gives them a defined offensive system that will clearly center around Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid receiving the most spacing that they probably have ever seen since the earlier years of them being together. And because of this, all of the variables that could have swayed anyone away from coming to the inevitable conclusion that these two stars cannot coexist with one another no longer exists with this team. And so if the Philadelphia 76ers cannot meet expectations, which in my opinion should be a 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference and really competing for a conference finals appearance, I do believe that the Sixers will see a drastic change in the near future with parting ways with either Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons. Up next, we have a team that could potentially keep the Philadelphia 76ers from meeting those expectations, and that team are the Milwaukee Bucks, who are in a situation where more or less this upcoming year is a championship or bust season. Milwaukee, unlike prior years in franchise history, have found themselves in a situation where they are one of the more relevant teams in the NBA. A huge reason for this has to do with their franchise player in Giannis Antetokounmpo, but that level of relevancy could evaporate by the end of the
I mean, this has been answered, right? But he's managed to sign a 5-year contract, so that's their future sealed for at least. I mean, 5 years maybe not, but 3 to 4 years is pretty much guaranteed of him now.
Depending on where the Bucks finish off in the postseason. And the reason for this is because Giannis is on the last year of his contract. To address this potential problem, the Milwaukee Bucks have decided to make some changes to their roster. The most noteworthy one is replacing Eric Bledsoe with Jrue Holiday, who should be able to duplicate the defensive productivity from Bledsoe while being a noticeable improvement on the offensive end. The Bucks also attempted to add even more firepower to their offense this offseason by going after Bogdanovic, but unfortunately that acquisition fell through. And allegedly due to the failed acquisition, there are some reservations from Giannis to sign a massive extension to the Bucks. But in my opinion, that isn't the biggest headline heading into this upcoming year in Milwaukee. Through my lens, what's much more important is the development of Giannis and what we can expect from him entering this upcoming year. Because up until this point, Giannis has had a very unconventional path to stardom. Due to this, placing expectations on Giannis has been fairly difficult within the past several years. However, this year is a bit different. Giannis is coming off of a season in which he not only won League MVP for the 2nd consecutive season, but also won Defensive Player of the Year. He also led the Milwaukee Bucks to not only the best record in the NBA, but one of the best regular seasons in franchise history. But unfortunately, the result in last year was an underwhelming performance from Giannis in the playoffs that concluded with a 2nd round exit. And now that we're at a point where we all just expect Giannis to be an MVP candidate on a year-to-year basis, lead his team to one of the best records in the NBA, and having phenomenal statistical year during the regular season, the next step in stardom, especially when it comes to putting your name amongst other all-time greats, is producing in the playoffs. And I do believe pushing for a championship or at bare minimum a finals appearance should not only be mandatory for the Milwaukee Bucks, but also a mandatory goal that should be set on Giannis as well. Then on the other side of the bracket, we have the Los Angeles Clippers, and after a very disappointing season, a lot was revealed about this organization. First,
didn't Paul George just sign a huge contract as well?
After blowing a 3-1 lead and failing to make the conference finals yet again in franchise history, obviously someone had to be the scapegoat. This year it was head coach Doc Rivers, and the Los Angeles Clippers decided to move in a different direction with the head coaching position while promoting Tyronn Lue. Now, after that news broke, there have been several stories that have been released claiming that both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard received preferential treatment from the front office, which normally is pretty common in the NBA. However, the preferential treatment was pretty extensive to the point where Kawhi would make various demands, and also it was deemed acceptable for him to show up late to either practices or even to some games. Because of the preferential treatment, it was alluded that it was really hard for the star players to build some chemistry with some of their supporting cast pieces.
Oh, wow.
And speaking of which, one of the more productive supporting cast members for the Clippers in Montrezl Harrell, who won Sixth Man of the Year last season, made his way to the rival team with the Los Angeles Lakers in free agency. And if that wasn't enough, recently Paul George in an interview where he outright stated that Doc Rivers did not use him correctly, and further alluded that Doc Rivers did not make the proper adjustments for the
Bro, so they're really like doing podcasts saying about how the previous seasons went. That's really interesting. You would never get that in like soccer, ever. But that's interesting to be able to get them kind of perspectives of players saying coaches didn't use them in the correct way. That's really interesting, actually.
For them to win the Denver Nuggets series. So yeah, that is a lot. And if you pair that with us understanding that the Lakers just got better this offseason, the Denver Nuggets more than likely will get better due to the experience that they have with one another, and even the Dallas Mavericks have made some adjustments to their roster that personally I am favorable of. Honestly, it will be very interesting to see what the Clippers will accomplish this upcoming season, because at this point, if last year wasn't a championship or bust season, it definitely feels like this year is. And then finally, we actually have legitimate battles for the 7th and 8th seed in both conferences. Now, normally this would not really matter. However, after last year's massive success with the play-in tournament, the NBA is going to duplicate that and bring it into the upcoming year. And I honestly believe it could turn out to be some of the most entertaining basketball we may witness all throughout the year. In the Eastern Conference, both the Washington Wizards and the Atlanta Hawks have made major adjustments to their roster, and of course the end result should be making the playoffs. And then in the Western Conference, it could be even better because you do have 10 teams who can make an argument to why they should expect to be in the playoffs. Teams such as the Memphis Grizzlies, the Phoenix Suns, the New Orleans Pelicans, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Golden State Warriors. It's very clear the race for the 7th, 8th, and possibly even the 6th seed will be highly entertaining.
So
I can't wait to see what happens towards the end of the season, and of course what's going to happen in the play-in tournament. But with that being said, people, please let me know what you think about the video in the comment section below. Also, to the people out there who are still watching this video and rocking with me strong, make sure you click the links in the description. Not only do I have a second channel where I will be doing...
Shout out to a second channel as well, man. I really do enjoy... I think I've done reactions to it in the past, and I really do enjoy these sort of videos that sort of cover things that have been going on in the past few... like in the off seasons, and sort of letting me know like what to expect when the league returns. But you know, European players good when the Americans start pronouncing their names right. We've also learned that Tyler Hero's fan club is insane. One thing learned, Daryl Morey is a very underrated part of Houston's success. The dude leaves, makes Philly 100 times better, and immediately the Rockets crumble. People need to stop making excuses for the Clippers. They were 3-1 up with their so-called issues. Kyle Lowry is cute. People love Kyle Lowry, don't they? Honestly, I would have loved if the Celtics were more active in the off-season. Yeah, I do like the Celtics a lot, honestly. If they sort of done a few things, like because they've got a promising team, they made a few adjustments, they could have really been a force, but they're still a top-level team, right? Oh, I dislike that accident. Yes, sir, Lau dropping vids means it's a good day.
Speaking of which, one of the more productive supporting cast members for the Clippers in Montrezl Harrell, who won...
I don't even know what you meant there. But I hope you guys enjoyed this reaction. More NBA reactions are going to come for sure, because I do want to get back into the league reactions to the sport as the league returns. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this reaction, and until next time, like, subscribe, peace.